Hello, YouTube. In 1997 in Moscow, Russia, there was an interview with the very secretive person, and it was conducted by Valery Uvarov, a researcher of the Russian paranormal phenomena as well as mysteries of ancient Egypt, traveler, publisher, newspaper editor, and more. The interview was with Major General of the FSB, that's the successor of the KGB, Soviet Secret Police, so to say, in modern Russia. Head of the Special Department of the Space Research Center, Vasily Yeremenko. This was the first of some interviews, very few, that the secretive general gave to the Russian media personalities. I'm not certain the general is still alive. I think he is, but he must be in his probably late 1980s. He knew quite a lot about UFOs in the USSR and Russia. Now, the second interview took place in 2016, but there was more information collected because he made a few appearances in Russia. Before we continue, I want to let you know that there will be repetitions, mainly to demonstrate that the general revealed more information in each of his appearances before the Russian media. And that's important to know. So, Major General of Aviation, Vasily Yeremenko, had worked in the central office of the KGB for more than a quarter of a century. He oversaw the Air Force and the development of new aviation and missile technology in the USSR and then in the Russian Federation. Few people know more about what was happening in the skies over the Soviet Union than he did. At least it's one opinion. Because I knew and presented information about people who knew quite a lot, including Colonel Plaksin. And you can see it in my books and lectures. Look, I collected some more available information about Yeremenko, but step by step. In the 2016 interview, he was called one of the organizers and participants of the Setka. That certain KGB officer, Major General Vasily Yeremenko, who was in charge of new Air Force projects back in the USSR. Now, as for the Setka, top secret Soviet UFO research program, please see my playlist in pertaining to military and UFO research in the Soviet Union. You will find it in my channel. In the interview with the author Marina Krugliakova, the Major General admitted that during the investigation of airplane crashes, KGB specialists regularly encountered UFOs. At the same time, the pilots themselves often did not inform their superiors about the flying saucers and spheres. They were afraid that they would be considered mentally ill because of this. But the specialists or experts of the first department, that would be KGB, were regularly informed about UFO sightings. By the will of his superiors, Yeremenko turned out to be the person to whom information flowed from all over the Soviet Union. He himself had seen unidentified flying objects several times. They were pulsating and glowing red spheres. Most of the UFO experiments that he was engaged in took place at the Vladimirovka training ground center near Astrakhan. That's the Russian city. By the way, so that you know, I have encountered this information in my research years ago. And that's important to confirm. Yeremenko said that scientists had brought the most sensitive equipment to this test site. The military even managed to learn how to summon UFOs. They noticed that balloons and other unidentified objects often appeared where there was tension, such as a disaster or the outbreak of hostilities, to cause UFOs to act. The military pilots of Vladimirovka resorted to a trick. They rolled out an unusually large number of aircraft from hangars, as if simulating the beginning of a military operation. And UFOs often appeared over the activated airfield. Scientists could only study the objects. They found that UFOs are often involved in the process of studying and playing with people. For example, a bright object could be seen with the naked eye hovering over the airfield, while nothing was visible on the instruments registering information, or the object remained in place but suddenly disappeared on the instruments, or the object went out and appeared in another place, but the mark on the radar screen did not change position. There were also attempts to establish direct contact. When a UFO appeared, one of the volunteer soldiers would come out to it and start moving left and right and gesticulating, spreading his arms to the sides and then crossing them over his chest. Then the object deviated to the right and left and then swelled up and shrank again. Is there any contact? It did not exist at the same time because the interaction with the flying saucers did not go beyond this. The Major General himself was sure that the Earth was dealing with manifestations of extraterrestrial intelligence. Moreover, the intelligence is of such a level that human civilization can neither interfere with it nor pose any danger. According to him, the military pilots of the USSR never managed to get close to UFOs, let alone shoot them down, but the objects themselves could fly with impunity wherever they wanted. For example, one day, experts from the Institute of Aircraft Maintenance and Repair flew on a specialized Ilyushin aircraft to Novosibirsk, it's a city in Siberia, scientific hub, where a plane crash occurred. A UFO appeared near the airplane in the Urals regions and approached it at a rather dangerous distance, and then circled the airliner several times. The scientists did not lose their heads and began photographing the object and recording observations. The result was a voluminous report, which was also filed to the point, as they said in the USSR. Yeremenko himself believed that perhaps the aliens themselves were not on Earth, and what we see is rather complex projections, a technology unknown to mankind that we will one day be able to comprehend. Now, let's see what actually was interviewed from another angle and another source. That's important. The interviewer asked Yeremenko, "Have you seen a UFO yourself?" The general responded like this, "I saw pulsating, glowing red spheres. I had to participate in an experiment at the Vladimirovka test site of one of the flight research and testing institutes in the Astrakhan region. The most modern equipment for that period was brought there. Scientists were gathered. The experiment lasted 6 months. It turned out that UFOs appear in places where there is tension, psychological, military, or any other. We even learned how to summon UFOs. To do this, it was necessary to get out of the usual test mode, to roll out a large number of aircraft from hangars, double or triple the number of flights, that is, to create an active environment. By the way, there was a test site of another institute, only strategic missiles, 50 kilometers away, and they had the same thing. As soon as they began to intensely pull out their missiles, UFOs immediately appeared. And what happened next? When a UFO appeared, all the equipment was turned on. It was used to determine the distance, radius, volume, and many other parameters. Sometimes they played with us. For example, the sphere is in place. That is visually, it is there, but according to the instruments, it suddenly disappeared somewhere. Then the mark on the locator reappeared, moved, but already about half a kilometer away. Although we can all see that the UFO is still where it was, or vice versa. Suddenly the sphere goes out, disappears, and immediately reappears in another place. And its mark on the radar screen does not change its position. Have you tried to contact them? The soldiers at the training ground are meticulous people, and during their shifts they began to experiment themselves. They're also big scientists. For example, a sphere appears and stops at a certain distance. The soldier bends and spreads his arms to the sides, right and left, twice. He's standing there waiting. The sphere is also compressed and unclenched right and left twice. Then the soldier raises and lowers his arms up and down twice again, and the UFO pulsates vertically up and down the same number of times. What is it? Can this be called a contact? There were many other situations that are also difficult to explain. What did the experiment show? 3 conclusions were drawn. First, UFOs may be the product of human activity. In other words, we looked at whether they were electronic intelligent devices of those countries that had advanced technologies, primarily in the field of electronics. Question: such serious developments and expenses just for the sake of finding out someone's secrets? Response: why not? Just then, in the Moscow region, they found the electronic system in a tree stump. As we call it, it's a small turtle-like device that captures information around the clock and transmits it to a satellite. Or there was the Torgau training ground in the German Democratic Republic. Our missiles and planes were tested there. I remember the operation was called the Nut. The Germans were clearing the forest around the landfill. They're neat guys, and cut down a dry tree. And suddenly it fell apart, and 2 glasses with wires and a nozzle on top fell out, with glass with highly illuminated optics. This equipment was turned on by vibration, that is, by the noise of aircraft, of rocket engines. At the time of the flight of the American satellite, a signal was fired vertically from the device. A special radio cannon made it possible to send a huge amount of information in a few seconds. Or, for example, there was such a case. As soon as a rocket launch was being prepared in Kamchatka, foreign reconnaissance planes immediately appeared and satellites flew by to take down the parameters of our missile technology. The analysis showed that data leakage most likely occurs through communication. There's a cable running along the bottom of the Sea of Охotsk, and then underground, and it stretches across the country and connects the Far East with Moscow. This is a classified communication. If such a cable is punctured, the air pressure drops and the connection is instantly terminated. They began to examine it along its entire length and eventually discovered that the Americans in the Sea of Охотsk had hung a special device on a submarine cable that wrapped its claws around it. There were 120 tape recorders in this sealed capsule. They recorded all the electromagnetic radiation. A submarine came every 2 months, and the combat swimmers changed these tape recorders. Question: that was the first conclusion. What is the second? Response: the second is an inexplicable phenomenon of nature. We still can't figure out the obvious. For example, what is a ball lightning? We know that it is a bundle of energy, but we do not know how it forms, where it goes, or why it flies. There is a phenomenon, but we don't have enough knowledge to understand it. It's the same as we couldn't imagine what electricity or radio waves were some time ago. The world is so diverse that it's hard to imagine what other discoveries await us ahead, new fields or waves or something else. Well, the third conclusion is an extraterrestrial civilization. Question: was it worth conducting so many experiments to come to such obvious conclusions? It turns out that you wasted your time. Response: no, it's not pointless. The Americans currently have several institutes that study UFOs. And by the way, their number has never decreased. What about us? Only 2 centers were created, and even those did not last long. One experiment was conducted, and based on its results, the second stage of research was to begin. In 1986, the Galactica program was adopted, but there was practically no work on it anymore. In 1991, all research was stopped. If the experiments had continued, then perhaps we could have already said something more specific and definite. End of the interview. Let's move on. Probably 7 years ago, right now I cannot determine the date as yet, and I don't want to just go by memory. There was a joint presentation by top former Soviet military brass from what they called an academy about paranormal phenomena. Vasily Alexeyevich Yeremenko, Major General of the FSB Reserve, academician of the Academy of Security, Defense and Law Enforcement Problems, was the first to speak to the media. During the Soviet period, while in the KGB, he oversaw the Air Force and the development of aviation technology. Among his assignments was to collect information through the Air Force about the appearance of unidentified flying objects. According to Vasily Yeremenko, a lot of such information had accumulated by that time. The missile units even received a directive in case of UFO sightings. The main thing was not to create opportunities for retaliatory aggression by Soviet actions. In 1983-84, a large-scale study of anomalous phenomena was organized at the Vladimirovka training ground by the Academy of Sciences, the Ministry of Defense, and the KGB. The military training ground was not chosen by chance. Experts have long concluded that UFOs inevitably appear in places where military equipment accumulates and weapons are tested. We can say that we have learned how to summon UFOs in Vladimirovka. To do this, the number of military aviation flights and the movement of equipment increased dramatically. If the intensity from our side increased, then UFOs appeared with a 100% probability, explained Vasily Yeremenko. After 6 months of testing, the authoritative commission came to three main conclusions. First, the modern science is still unable to identify such phenomena. Second, it could be intelligence equipment from the United States or Japan. Third, the impact of an extraterrestrial civilization is possible. Everyone is talking about UFOs today. It is precisely because of its sensationalism that serious scientists do not risk expressing their position on this issue. Pilots often see similar objects, but they have a kind of veto on this topic, just like the cosmonauts. In confidential conversations, they talk about their experiences with UFOs, but they are afraid to speak publicly about it, said Vasily Yeremenko. In his opinion, this topic should not be talked about and should be approached very seriously, since this is a security issue. But both in the United States and in our country, he added, this topic is still closed. In another obscure Russian video from Russia, date unknown, speaking to an audience and an interviewer, Vasily Yeremenko, a KGB general who led the department studying UFOs and aliens, said this: objects always appeared above military bases and training grounds at sign of military activity. The military even did this specifically to cause the appearance of UFOs and study them. Obviously, the aliens arrived literally in a few minutes, not just for curiosity, namely for the sake of control and to be able to intervene if necessary. Yeremenko also said that the KGB had come to the conclusion that aliens did not interfere in local conflicts, but would not allow a world war and the use of nuclear weapons. This is what I wanted to let you know today. This is to the point. I wish we had more information. And to be honest, when I hear new revelations by retired American spy officers, whatever, I'm sorry. To me, it pales in comparison to what Yeremenko revealed, what I found out. You can see my videos about USO research by the Soviet Union. By the way, also shut down, I think made much more secretive in mid-1980s. You can see my videos about Soviet UFO research. USSR was a big country, and still Russia is still the largest in the world. And they had conducted a number of interesting research under the Setka program, and I believe in Galactica to an extent. It was another name in Kazakhstan, namely in other places. I still don't know what Astrakhan dust is and a few other terms. I don't want to repeat myself. You can go and check out my videos. But that's what I wanted to let you know today. There's a lot of noise today about summoning UFOs. Well, this is from somebody who actually did it. So listen to it, make up your own mind, and I will continue to bring you more information about Soviet UFO research. And I think serious people understand the importance of such information. I've published books now, I believe, in 7 languages on the subject of UFOs and USOs in the former Soviet Union and modern Russia and post-Soviet republics. Thank you for your opinion to your opinion and to support of my research. And if you can help my such research, please do so through the links you will find in description to this video. Please like my videos. Please tell others.